Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a deep look at the systems that really drive long-term success and perseverance.
Yeah, and we're moving past that simple idea of just willpower, like it's some kind of muscle you either have or you don't.
Exactly. We want to get into the real architecture, the psychological stuff, the behavioral patterns, even the biology that determines if we keep going or if we, sabotage ourselves.
That's the goal. Because when you really break down consistent effort over, say, years, it's not just one big push. It's a mix, isn't it?
A mix of what exactly?
Well, how we handle our habits, how we manage those internal battles, healing from past stuff, even how our relationships play into it. We're pulling from some foundational ideas here.
Like conditioning, behaviorism.
Right, and then cognitive defenses, trauma, and even, that big search for meaning. It all connects.
So our mission today is really about making this practical, understanding the how. How do we build systems that actually work? How do we deal with that internal resistance like shame or that weird mental justification thing?
Cognitive dissonance, yeah.
Right. And how do we use our connections with others and find a purpose that makes putting in the hard yards feel, not just bearable, but maybe even important? Let's unpack that engine. Okay, so let's start with the foundation, systems. This idea has really shaken up how we think about getting things done, hasn't it?
Absolutely. The core concept is powerful. Forget setting goals. Focus on the system instead.
Because we don't rise to the goal.
We fall to the level of our systems. If your system is flawed, the goal doesn't really matter much in the long run. Goals are just moments in time, right? Aspirations.
But the system is what you do every single day, the process.
Exactly. And once you shift your focus there from the outcome to the input, the whole game changes. This is where behavioral science really comes in handy.
Particularly those laws for building good habits. They're all about making things easier, right? Reducing the friction.
Precisely. Law number 1, make it obvious.
Sounds simple, but I think we miss this one a lot. What does that actually look like?
It's about taking the decision out of the moment, the best tool. Implementation intentions.
Okay, explain that.
So instead of a vague goal like, I want to exercise more, you get really specific. I will do 30 minutes of yoga at 7 a.m. in the living room. See?
Yeah, it's concrete. You've already decided the when, where, and what. No debating it at 7 a.m.
It bypasses that need for motivation right then and there. Turns the fuzzy desire into a solid plan linked to a time and place.
And habit stacking builds on that, right?
Yeah.
Linking the new thing to something you already do automatically.
Yep. After I pour my morning coffee, I will open my laptop and write for 10 minutes. The old habit becomes the trigger for the new one. Super effective.
But it's not just mental tricks, is it? The environment matters hugely.
Oh, massively.
All right.
We think we need to battle temptation with raw willpower, but often successful people have just designed their surroundings better. They make the cues for bad habits invisible, and the cues for good habits really obvious. Trying to cut down on screen time, don't leave your phone charging right next to your bed.
Makes sense. If you want to play guitar more.
Leave it out on a stand. In the middle of the room, maybe? Not hidden away in a case in the back of the closet. You're literally designing your space to nudge your future self.
Okay, so make it obvious. Then law number 2 is make it attractive. How does that work? We often think habits have to be forced.
Well, the smart way is to link things. That's temptation bundling.
Ah, right. Pairing something you want to do with something you need to do.
Exactly. It's like a little neurological hack. You only let yourself listen to your favorite podcast, say, while you're doing the dishes or on the treadmill.
So you turn the chore into the gateway for the reward.
Clever. It reframes the necessary task. But, the real power in making things attractive, it often comes from other people.
The social environment. How does that make a habit stick?
We're social animals, deep down.
Yeah.
If you want a behavior to feel normal, even desirable, join a group or a community where that behavior is the norm, where it's expected, maybe even celebrated.
Like joining a running club, if you want to run regularly.
Precisely. If everyone around you is lacing up their shoes for practice, it's way easier to join in than if you're the only one doing it. That social reinforcement, it's probably the strongest engine for consistency we have.
Okay. That gives us a blueprint for getting habits started. But then comes the hard part, keeping them going, sustaining the effort.
And that's where things get biological. We have to talk about Pavlov.
Pavlov, like the dogs and the bells.
Sort of, but it goes much deeper than just salivation. His work on conditioned reflexes gave us huge insights into how our nervous system, specifically the cortex, handles sustained effort. He looked at the balance between excitation.
Which is like the ability to respond, to do things.
Exactly. And inhibition, the ability to stop responding, to rest, to recover. It's a delicate balance.
And what did he find happens when we just push, push, push like modern life often expects, when that balance gets thrown off?
He did these meticulous experiments, and he found that if you stimulate those cortical cells, the brain cells doing the work too frequently without enough recovery time.
I just get tired.
More than tired. They become functionally exhausted. They basically run out of juice. And when they hit that point, they don't just slow down, they flip entirely into a state of inhibition.
Meaning they just stop working, the animal stops responding, even to things it was trained to do.
Completely. Zero response. Like the dogs refusing food they were conditioned to expect. But here's the really crucial part for us. That inhibition, that exhaustion, it doesn't always stay put.
What do you mean?
It can irradiate, spread out to neighboring parts of the cortex.
So being exhausted from, say, intense mental work
Could actually reduce your ability to be patient with your family later, or find the energy to cook a healthy meal.
yes, it dampens your positive drive, your ability to act, even in totally unrelated areas. It's not just one system failing. It's like the whole capacity for positive action gets dragged down.
That sounds exactly like burnout.
Yeah.
That state Pavlov actually called faiblesse irritable.
Irritable weakness.
Mhm.
Wow.
It's basically the physiological underpinning of burnout, and it proves that rest, real recovery, isn't just nice to have. It's biologically essential to prevent the brain from getting stuck in that exhausted state.
And Pavlov also noted something about which process breaks down first.
Yes, and this is key. The inhibitory process, the braking system, the ability to rest and stop is more fragile, more labile, he said, than the excitatory process, the gas pedal.
So if you want long-term consistency,
You have to protect your ability to hit the brakes, to recover, to inhibit the non-productive stuff, because that's the system that's most easily damaged by relentless pressure.
which leads us to B.F. Skinner and his, well, pretty radical ideas about behavior. If our actions are so tied to cues, conditioning, and even brain exhaustion, how much is really down to personal willpower or responsibility?
Skinner took it to the logical extreme. As a radical behaviorist, he argued it's the environment that's ultimately responsible for behavior, even objectionable behavior, not some inner quality of the person.
Behavior is just a function of what happens next, the consequences.
The contingencies of reinforcement, yeah. What gets rewarded, what gets punished, essentially.
I can almost hear people thinking, but wait, doesn't that let people off the hook? Where's accountability?
That's the tension, absolutely. Skinner would say, look, if you run into a wall, nature just gives you a bump on the head. It doesn't lecture you about responsibility. He saw concepts like dignity or inner responsibility as pre-scientific ways to explain things we didn't understand.
So his argument is if we want better behavior, more sustained effort.
We need to stop just blaming the individual and actually change the environment, modify the contingencies.
So if someone's struggling to stick with something, we should analyze the environment. What's supporting the behavior? What's punishing it?
Precisely. Instead of just demanding more willpower, redesign the situation to make the desired action easier and the undesired action harder. Build systems, create environments that support what you want to achieve. It's about managing the external forces that shape our actions.
Okay, so we need supportive external systems. But what about the conflicts inside our own heads? That brings us to cognitive dissonance.
Ah, yes, Leon Festinger's big idea. That uncomfortable feeling, that tension, when we hold two conflicting ideas or beliefs, or when our actions don't match our beliefs.
And the drive to get rid of that discomfort is incredibly strong, isn't it?
Hugely powerful.
Mhm.
It pushes us to rationalize, to justify, sometimes in really irrational ways, just to feel consistent again. It's the engine of self-justification.
We all feel little conflicts daily, but when does this dissonance become really intense? Like a major drag on us?
Festinger identified 3 key factors that ramp up the magnitude of that dissonance, especially after making a decision. First, pretty obviously, the importance of the decision.
Bigger decision, more potential discomfort. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Buying a house versus choosing a brand of coffee.
Exactly. Second, and this one's less intuitive, the attractiveness of the unchosen alternative.
Wait, so if the option you didn't pick was really good, you feel more dissonance?
Think about it. If you choose between something great and something terrible, easy choice, minimal dissonance, but choosing between 2 really appealing job offers, that's where the discomfort kicks in strongly.
Because you're keenly aware of all the good stuff you just rejected.
Precisely. Every positive aspect of the job you turned down now clashes with the fact that you chose the other one. So you have to work harder mentally to convince yourself you made the right call.
And the third factor, cognitive overlap.
Right. The degree of cognitive overlap. If the two options were very similar, like two almost identical cars, there's less dissonance because you didn't really give up anything unique. The more different the options, the more distinct positive features you potentially missed out on, the greater the conflict.
So you've made the big, difficult choice. The dissonance is nagging at you. What do we typically do then? We can't undo the choice.
We engage in mental gymnastics. We start changing how we think about the options after the fact.
How so?
We actively pump up the positives of the thing we chose, and we downplay or even start finding new flaws in the thing we rejected. We're basically editing our own perceptions to make ourselves feel better, more consistent.
Which explains that classic finding about new car owners.
Oh, yeah. After they buy a car, they suddenly become voracious readers of ads and reviews. But only for the car they just bought.
They're not looking for objective information anymore.
Nope. They're actively seeking consonant information stuff that confirms their choice and reduces that lingering dissonance. It shows how deep that need to feel right really goes.
And this pendency, this need for consistency, it's something that can be exploited, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about persuasion tactics like Cialdini talks about.
Absolutely. The foot-in-the-door technique banks on this. You get someone to agree to a small, seemingly trivial request first.
Like signing a petition or putting a small sticker in their window.
Right. And once they've done that, they start to subtly shift their self-image. I guess I'm the kind of person who supports this cause.
And because they want to stay consistent with that new self-image.
They become much more likely to agree to a larger related request later on. They're not just complying with you, they're complying with their own sense of self. It's clever and a bit unnerving.
And speaking of irrationality, Dan Ariely's work shows how weird we are with value, especially around anchors and the magic word, free.
Oh, free is incredibly powerful. It's not just another price point. It triggers a totally different psychological reaction.
Why? What's so special about zero cost?
It feels like there's no downside, no risk of loss. Ariely gives that great example from France. An online retailer tried charging just 1 franc, like 20 cents for shipping. Tiny amount, basically free.
And people jumped on it.
Nope. It barely moved the needle. But
Yeah.
when they changed it to actually free shipping, zero-cost sales shot up dramatically, matching results from places where shipping was much more expensive before the free offer.
So our brains just process free E differently. It overrides logical cost-benefit analysis.
Completely. It's an emotional hot button, not just a price tag.
Okay, let's pivot to another form of internal drag, something Brené Brown has explored deeply. Shame. How does that sabotage us?
Shame is fundamentally different from guilt. Guilt is, I did something bad. Shame is, I am bad.
It's that deep, painful feeling of being flawed, unworthy of connection or belonging. The fear of being unlovable, basically.
Exactly. And it's the total opposite of owning your story, flaws and all.
So when we feel that intense vulnerability, that shame, what's the typical defense mechanism?
Numbing. We try to deaden those painful emotions, those sharp points, as Brown calls them.
And numbing can look like a lot of different things, right? Not just obvious stuff like drinking too much.
Oh, yeah. It can be overeating, gambling, sure. But it can also be workaholism, obsessive busyness, trying to control everything and everyone, or perfectionism.
Perfectionism as a shield.
A heavy one. It's often about trying to avoid criticism or judgment by presenting a flawless front, because showing the real imperfect self feels way too vulnerable.
But the catch is devastating, isn't it? You can't just numb the bad feelings.
You absolutely cannot selectively numb emotion. When you shut down your vulnerability to shame or grief or disappointment, you inevitably dull the positive emotions too.
Like joy, gratitude, connection.
All of it. You end up sacrificing the very things that actually fuel perseverance and make life meaningful just to avoid the discomfort. It's a terrible trade-off.
And this avoidance, this fear, can also show up as a desperate need for certainty.
Yes, that's another huge internal saboteur. That feeling of I can't stand not knowing, or I just need to make a decision, any decision.
So we rush into things, or maybe avoid starting something big and complex, because the uncertainty feels overwhelming.
Precisely. We might avoid digging deeper into a problem because we're scared of what we might find something uncomfortable, something outside our control. That craving for absolute certainty keeps us trapped, preventing us from engaging with the necessary messiness of growth and real, sustained effort.
Okay, we've hit external systems, internal conflicts. Now let's talk about the people around us. Sustaining effort, especially through tough times, seems impossible alone. Our connections are vital.
Absolutely fundamental. Attachment theory gives us a great framework for understanding how these bonds work, or sometimes how they don't work so well.
Those main styles, secure, anxious, and avoidant, they shape how we reach out, how we handle distress.
Right. And the avoidance style is particularly relevant when we think about perseverance because their whole orientation is towards independence, sometimes at the expense of connection.
They value self-sufficiency highly, maybe see too much closeness as suffocating.
That's often how it feels to them. They can be uncomfortable with deep intimacy, keep partners at a bit of an emotional distance. They might not open up easily, and when a partner wants more closeness or expresses needs.
The avoidant person might see that as neediness or clinging,
Yeah,
a threat to their autonomy.
exactly. They might pull back. And yet, ironically, sometimes popular dating advice can inadvertently steer people towards these dynamics.
How so? The whole play hard to get thing.
Yeah. That kind of advice often teaches someone, especially someone with anxious tendencies, to suppress their genuine needs for reassurance and connection.
So by acting distant or unavailable.
They might initially attract an avoidant partner who feels comfortable with that lack of demand, but it sets up this really painful dynamic down the road, the anxious avoidant trap.
Like that classic example, Marcia and Craig. He's avoidant, she's anxious. What does that look like in practice?
Craig, the avoidant one, uses what are called deactivating strategies. After getting close, he might pull away, find fault, keep the future vague, maybe use silence or arguments to create distance.
He's pushing her away, essentially.
Right. And Marcia, the anxious one, responds with protest behavior, maybe excessive calling or texting, withdrawing, hoping he'll notice, getting emotional, trying to make him jealous.
Her attachment system is basically sounding the alarm constantly.
Exactly. It's perpetually activated, which keeps her nervous system on edge and absolutely drains the energy she might need for other long-term goals, work, projects, self-care. It's exhausting.
So how do securely attached people navigate this?
Yeah.
Or how do they build resilience within a relationship?
Secure folks tend to have clearer boundaries and more self-respect baked in. They spot potential issues, those smoking guns, like inconsistency or fear of commitment early on, and they don't see them as projects to fix.
They see them as information, maybe deal breakers.
Right. They also communicate their needs more directly and earlier, not bottling things up. And crucially, they don't internalize a partner's bad behavior.
They don't take the blame if a partner is dismissive or unavailable.
Exactly. They understand that reflects the partner's issues, not their own worth. That internal locus of control is strong. They believe their actions matter, but they also recognize the limits of their influence on someone else's patterns.
Okay, but even in secure relationships, conflicts happen, arguments flare up. What about when things escalate and emotions take over? That feeling of being overwhelmed.
That's flooding. It's a physiological reality. Your heart rate skyrockets, your body goes into fight or flight, and your rational brain basically goes offline. You can't really listen or problem solve effectively anymore.
So what can people do? There's that XYZ formula for complaining without attack.
Yeah, that's a great communication tool, often attributed to Haim Janat and popularized by Gottman. When you did X specific behavior, it made me feel Y your emotion, and I'd rather you did Z positive request instead.
So instead of you're always late, you don't care.
It's when you arrived 30 minutes late without calling X, I felt worried and unimportant Y. Next time, could you please just send a quick text if you're running late, Z? It focuses on the behavior and the feeling, not character assassination.
Much less defensive. But if you're already flooded, even saying that might be impossible. What's the immediate first aid?
Stop. Seriously, call a timeout. Both partners need to agree to take a break, minimum 20 minutes. That's roughly how long it takes for the adrenaline to subside physiologically.
During that break, what should you do? Or maybe what shouldn't you do?
Crucially, don't just sit there stewing. Avoid replaying the argument in your head, thinking about how right you are and how wrong they are. That just keeps the flooding going.
So distract yourself. Soothe yourself.
Yes. Do something genuinely calming or distracting. Listen to music. Read something unrelated. Go for a walk, deep breathing, whatever works, to bring your nervous system back down. Only then can you re-engage constructively.
This all ties back to the underlying physiology, doesn't it? The polyvagal theory you mentioned. Our ability to manage this stuff depends on our nervous system's flexibility.
Absolutely. Stephen Porges's work highlights how our autonomic nervous system shifts our state. It's not just fight or flight or rest and digest. There's also a social engagement system mediated by the vagus nerve.
And vagal tone is a measure of how well that system works.
Pretty much. It's often indexed by something called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, RSA. That's the natural variation in your heart rate as you breathe. Higher variability, or higher vagal tone, means your vagal brake is strong.
A strong vagal brake means you can calm down more easily after stress. Shift back into that calmer, socially connected state.
Exactly. You have more physiological flexibility to regulate your emotions. And Porges emphasizes that feeling safe and socially engaged is crucial for the system to work well. When we feel threatened, the system shifts priority to mobilization or shutdown.
Which makes sense why chronic relationship stress or unresolved trauma would make sustained effort so much harder. It keeps the nervous system locked in a defensive state.
Precisely. Which brings us to trauma. It doesn't just leave emotional scars, it can create this powerful unconscious drive to reenact the traumatic situation.
Why would we possibly want to repeat something so painful? It seems counterintuitive.
From a biological standpoint, it's seen as a compulsive attempt by the organism to finally complete the survival response that got interrupted.
Meaning?
When the trauma happened, maybe the person froze. Huge amounts of survival energy, fight or flight juice got mobilized but couldn't be discharged because they were immobilized by fear. That energy gets stuck.
And the reenactment is like an unconscious attempt to finally discharge it, to finish the cycle.
That's the theory. But often, the victim prevents completion again because the intense arousal itself has become terrifyingly linked to that original feeling of helpless terror, of being immobilized.
The feeling of the energy itself becomes the threat.
Yes. Especially for humans, our thinking brain adds layers of fear and meaning onto that raw physiological state, making it even harder to move through. It keeps the freeze response locked in.
So healing isn't about forcing yourself through the terror, but maybe about finding safety and agency now.
Exactly. It involves slowly integrating ordinary, safe sensory experiences and, crucially, developing or restoring an internal locus of control.
That belief that your actions actually matter, that you can influence how you feel and how things turn out.
That's the core of it. Securely attached kids learn this naturally. They learn they can take action, seek help, and cope with difficulty.
Whereas chronic trauma or neglect teaches the opposite lesson. Helplessness. Nothing I do changes the outcome.
Right. And that pattern can persist, making future challenges feel insurmountable. So a huge part of healing and building the foundation for perseverance is about experiences that reinforce agency, that feeling of, I can do something about this.
Okay, we've covered systems, internal blocks, relationships, trauma. What actually fuels the engine long term? That leads us to meaning and maybe states like flow.
Yes, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow is powerful here. It's that state of being completely absorbed in an activity where you lose track of time, action, and awareness merge.
You're just fully in it. And a key part of that is focus, right?
Total focus. And that intense concentration has a critical side effect. It pushes out all the mental noise, the worries, the self-criticism, the anxieties, what Csikszentmihalyi called psychic entropy.
Psychic entropy, love that term. It's like the disorder in our consciousness, the static that drains our energy.
Exactly. And flow, by demanding all our attention, automatically creates order in the mind. It silences that entropy, at least for a while.
So it's immediately rewarding, which helps with consistency.
Yeah.
But does it have longer-term effects? Does it actually change us?
He argues it does. Engaging in flow activities makes the self more complex over time.
More complex. How?
Through two complementary processes. First, differentiation, becoming more unique, developing specialized skills, separating yourself in a way. And second, integration, connecting with things beyond the self, like other people, larger ideas, a community.
So the ideal isn't just being highly skilled or highly connected, but both. A complex self is both differentiated and integrated.
That's the idea, like a thriving ecosystem, lots of specialized parts working together within a larger whole. That complexity builds resilience.
This touches on the bigger question of meaning in life. If science tells us there's no grand, preordained cosmic purpose, well, that can feel a bit bleak.
It can. But Csikszentmihalyi makes a vital distinction. Just because life might not have a supreme goal built into the universe doesn't mean life can't be given meaning by us.
So meaning is something we create.
Yes. He suggests that culture, civilization, art, science, these are all fundamentally human efforts to create purpose and order in the face of potential meaninglessness. It's not a bug. It's a feature we build ourselves.
That idea of actively creating meaning, even confronting meaninglessness, reminds me of Jordan Peterson's work on the heroic path.
Right. He talks about this third mode of adapting to the world, It's not just passively accepting things, and it's not collapsing under pressure either.
It's something more active, more voluntary.
It's the voluntary acceptance of chaos, essentially, sacrificing the comfort of certainty, stepping outside the known, the familiar map.
And deliberately confronting the unknown, the unexpected, the things that don't fit your current understanding.
Exactly. In order to learn, adapt, and bring back something new, it's painful, it's destabilizing, but it's necessary for growth and transformation.
He draws a line between the hero or genius who does this and the madman. What's the difference? They both face chaos, right?
The key difference is voluntary confrontation versus involuntary overwhelm. The genius or hero chooses to face the breakdown of their old maps, often on ground they've prepared, hoping for inspiration and reconstruction. They submit to the chaos, knowing it's part of rebuilding.
And the madman?
The madman is running away from something they've ignored, some carnivorous aspect of reality or themselves. They haven't faced it voluntarily, and eventually that neglected chaos just consumes them. One navigates the flood, the other drowns.
So confronting the necessary chaos requires courage, but also a sense of purpose driving it. Which brings us back to the why. Ancient wisdom often warns against chasing external stuff, money, fame.
Striving after wind, as Ecclesiastes puts it. And there's truth to that, especially for purely materialistic goals. But modern psychology, like Jonathan Haidt's work, suggests it's not quite that simple.
Meaning?
Breaking all attachments, the extreme stoic ideal, might be unrealistic or even unhealthy for humans. Some things outside ourselves are worth striving for.
Like what?
Strong relationships, mastering a skill, contributing to something larger than yourself. Happiness and the motivation to persevere seems to come partly from these external connections and achievements, not just internal states.
And this links directly to Viktor Frankl and logotherapy, born from the most extreme circumstances imaginable.
Frankl's experience in the concentration camps led him to believe that the primary human drive is the search for meaning. Existential emptiness, that feeling of pointlessness, can only be overcome if we find a purpose.
So ultimately, the ability to endure, to persevere through hardship, relies on having a compelling why.
It seems essential. That purpose is what justifies the heroic confrontation with chaos. It provides the direction for our habit systems, and it makes the discomfort of vulnerability and self-correction feel worthwhile. Without a why, the effort eventually feels empty.
So wrapping this up, it feels like we've journeyed through the whole architecture, from the nuts and bolts of brain chemistry and rest.
Through shaping our environment and habits, dealing with those internal mental knots like dissonance and shame.
To the power of secure relationships, healing old wounds, and finally, finding or creating that driving purpose. It's not one thing, is it?
Not at all. Long-term success, perseverance, grit, whatever you call it, isn't some magical trait. It's the outcome of all these interlocking systems working together or failing together.
You need the low-friction habits, you need to manage the psychological drag, you need the stable base of connection, and you need that why pulling you forward.
And maybe one final thought, circling back to Pavlov. Remember, he found the inhibitory system, the brakes, were more fragile than the excitatory gas pedal.
Right. Easily damaged.
So, if sustained effort is the goal, maybe the most crucial thing isn't just pushing harder. Maybe it's about how effectively we protect our ability to stop the unproductive stuff, to manage the internal noise, to rest and recover.
Protecting the brakes, not just flooring the accelerator.
Exactly. The real battle might be for control over our attention and protecting those internal structures that allow us to recover and actually build complexity over time.
That's a powerful takeaway. So, for everyone listening, if this knowledge is most useful when you actually apply it, maybe consider this. Where's the biggest point of friction in your own internal architecture right now?
Is it a broken system? Maybe a habit that needs one simple, obvious cue adjusted?
Or is it an internal conflict, something you're maybe rationalizing away?
Could it be a draining relationship, keeping your nervous system on high alert?
Or maybe a lack of a clear purpose that makes the effort feel, pointless. What single, small, intentional step, based on what we've discussed, could you take to start reducing that friction and building more consistency?